not often in esports that a team that has very, very lackluster results gets the opportunity to think about the future, the ability to rebuild and start over, essentially. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, there is a team that has joined that has been in esports for quite a while. That team in particular is Team Liquid. Very prolific organization that usually has success associated to it. And unfortunately for Team Liquid, since coming into the Rocket League, it's been kind of tainted. Team Liquid isn't really in conversation of a successful roster, nor has it been since they joined the scene in the summer of 2020. In today's video, we're going to talk about Team Liquid's history. We're going to go over where they were, how they've gotten to where they are, and hopefully a future that might lead to some long-term success. Let's talk about it. How's it going, everybody? Lawler here. Going to be talking about Team Liquid and kind of their future. This one is more of like a passion thing because I do think there's a lot of potential for this team and want to show and shed some light to it. So let's take a journey. We're going to talk about the history of how they came to be, the results, the different iterations this team has been founded on, and what may become an upswing, what may become people rooting for Team Liquid again. Fingers crossed. So let's start back at the beginning. We got to go all the way back to the summer, particularly Independence Day for North America on July 4th, 2020, where Team Liquid officially entered the Rocket League scene, picking up the former Mouse Sports roster of Cookser, Speed, and new addition now of Fruity. Before, it was Cookser, Speed, and a lot. They then brought in Scrubkilla, and then Scrubkilla got replaced by Arju as a temporary stand-in. After figuring out where certain players were going to go, Arju ended up going over to the Monkeys and playing with them, and Fruity got brought in from what was Reciprocity, Solary, etc. Over the course of the next few months, Team Liquid didn't have the greatest results, playing in a new season of RLCS X where there was the grid alongside regional events to where they were pretty much falling out in the bottom, 5th through 8th, 9th to 12th, never really peaking into the top. There was times during the grid, which was more of a side tournament that most teams didn't put weight into. It was basically a last-ditch effort to become a wildcard team where they broke into top 4 or top 2, and those were far and few in between. But when it came to the major events, when it came to the regionals, the team almost never made it outside of the bottom 4. They were always in a point where people just kind of brushed them aside, where they got outclassed by teams like the top dogs, BDS, Vitality, Endpoint, you name it. Every single team basically took them and looked at them as a free win, which is unfortunate because on paper, they had the makings to be everything successful. They had a great defensive player who read the game well in Cookser. You had the opportunity to play super aggressive on offense with Speed and Fruity. It seemed like on paper it had a chance, but the playstyles never really seemed to line up. Things weren't moving in the right direction, and officially on October 30th, Cookser was removed from the team, and a couple weeks later, they brought in Ronicky from FC Barcelona. Ronicky at this point was known as a wildcard player with excellent striking capabilities, but was kind of a glue that could put the team together. Someone that was consistent and the ability to put on pressure, which is something they were desperately lacking. The offense never really fit, it felt like, for Team Liquid. Shortly after Ronicky joined, they then also brought in long-term veteran Remco as a coach in hopes of providing some veteran knowledge to progress the team in the right direction. That was in November, and continuous results, and if you can see their Liquipedia page, which is probably showing on your screen right now, that color is not good. You are hoping for gold, silver, bronze, and in this, you are getting a different color of green or blue that does not mean success. Every single thing they were doing was not working, whether it be in qualifiers, whether it be in just trying to get into main events. They were not successful. Again, continuously bottom 8, bottom 4, not able to progress past those initial rounds. And in most circumstances in esports, after this amount of time, which in the past used to be an entire season of Rocket League, with an extended series that now goes 10 to 11 months as compared to 3 to 4, most teams get dropped. Most teams do not have an organization backing them. And it's something that I think is very commendable and should be talked about with Team Liquid, to where they are willing to stick with and support a roster that has not had a single glimpse of success when it came to the events that matter the most, the ones that propel them to what is the inevitable world championship. It's what people care for. Inevitably, this continues for quite a while, and we eventually get into the 2021 year, where changes need to be made. Clearly, something is not going right, and in most circumstances, that means a roster change. And they did two things. Number one, they brought in a young stellar player from BS Plus competition by the name of Acronic. Had his rookie season on a team and showed that he is another up-and-coming talent. Very young player, now at the age of 16, with the capabilities to be a hard carry, a person that has the mechanics and the individual gifts to push a team to that next level. This is similar to what Remco got to see when it was on TSM, and Alpha 54 was the one that basically propelled that team and tried to have success that way. Acronic is supposed to be their new hard carry, their new focus, and supposedly it was supposed to be the end-all to be-all. Alongside that, they brought in their coach as Remco was released. They brought in Xpere, a coach from BS Plus competition as well. This all went down 4 days after the release of Speed and Fruity on Team Liquid. This is October 4th, 2021, right before the next season starts. On October 8th, Acronic and Xpere got brought in alongside Flakes. And this is where some of the controversy comes into play. There was conversations, there was tweets, and primarily one tweet in particular really stands out to me, which has to do with their former teammate in Fruity. Fruity puts out a tweet basically stating that, obviously, this is the focus that I'm going to, but you look at Team Liquid, and they are left with a player that many consider is a last resort. During trade windows and during the ability to test out and try out new players to figure out what this final roster is going to be, there is a lot of moving parts, and I've said this a lot in the past. The ability to bring in a new talent and you try out every single iteration. If I've got, in this circumstance, Acronic and Ronicky, I'm going to try this new third player, and I'm going to try that with different iterations of every possibility. And after a certain point, if things don't get solidified or indecision is there, these players are going to get picked up, and you're left with someone you may not necessarily want, or someone that may not necessarily be the correct fit. And in Fruity's tweet, he basically hints that Flakes is not what they want. He's been known for a different type of playstyle that I personally agree does not translate to the RLCS, and many of us expected this roster to be doomed before it even got off the ground. And unfortunately, so far in the 2021 season, which officially started earlier in the year, more of the same. We continue to see results that do not live up to the RLCS X standard. And in the 2021-2022 season, which officially started about 9 days after, on October 17th, the first qualifier for the closed event, again, Liquid goes 12th to 14th in the standings and does not qualify. You then see them in Regional 2, 12th to 14th, do not qualify. And again, in Regional 3 of Fall, 12th to 14th, they do not qualify. So, it's every single regional, same exact results, and it has now been a year and a half of results with nothing to show for it. So many people, in association to Team Liquid, expect basically nothing from the team. And you take a player and a young mentality of someone like Acronic, who had quite a bit of success on his last roster, and is now the complete antithesis of that, and is basically just expected to lose week in and week out. What that does for a mentality, not only for him, but also even Ronicky and everybody else, a lack of motivation definitely comes there. And now you look at the team and you expect, well, what are we going to do? Everything it seems like that is available is a temporary band-aid, which is just going to lead to more failure. And this is where it comes into concern. This is where I think is the turning point for Team Liquid. Recently, I covered a tournament called the Monaco Gaming Show 2021, where Team Liquid took second place in the main event. For the first time in essentially a year and a half, they see real results. And part of the reason why is because they are playing with an entirely different roster. They have built around a roster of Acronic and two up-and-coming players in a Tau and Oski. This presents a problem to us where I mentioned that temporary band-aid. You are trying out 2 players who are 14, and for those that do not know, you have to be at least 15 to play in the RLCS, and if you are not eligible before that time hits, which the winter split will be starting and closing on January 2nd, and both these players do not turn 15 until February, which means that not only have you been giving up the fall split, but also the winter split. And even if you were to magically win every single event, not only in regionals 1, 2, and 3 in the spring, but also the major, there is no chance for you to make it to the World Championship. So at this point, you go, okay, we need to change something, and there needs to be a roster move, but what are we going to do now? We have our sights set on what seems like these new up-and-coming players, and results are showing. Things are good, but what do we do? And a Chronic luckily stopped into my stream recently and had this to say. I know this might be weird for people outside, and it's weird for me as well, but trust Liquid now. Liquid has been in the wrong hands of the RL scene, and Liquid is an org that likes long-term teams, and our plan is to create one. And he gave us a little bit of insight. He understands, and so does Team Liquid, and this is where I commend them. A lot of people look at Team Liquid and go, what are you doing? This is not a way to be successful. Something clearly needs to change. And I was lucky enough to sit down with both a Chronic and Xperia and talk about some of the things going on between Liquid, and maybe those things will see the light in the future. If you guys would like for that to happen, I beg you and urge you to let me know in the comments down below. Give the video thumbs ups, and I guess basically ask for it. And maybe we can position that to let this story come out, because I do think it is a very important one that provides a lot of insight into the way things operate behind the scenes that the general public does not get to know. But having the capability to sit down and learn some of those things, I think is very exciting, that Team Liquid, alongside the player and the coach, understand that long-term success is very important. And in a day and age where everything is instant gratification and everything is focused on right now, needing results right now, Team Liquid, as an organization that is pumping in a ton of money to this roster, is willing to understand, you know what, 2021, 2022 may not be our year, but let's make sure we take the right steps so we can be successful in the long term, to which I respect that decision a lot. It's something that I wish was made more public, and it might help their image a little bit more. But from the looks of it, and talking about the future now and why I'm hopeful for this roster, is the understanding of things I'm seeing right now. Young mechanical players who just happen to live up to the hype and are for some reason clutch in the biggest moments, building a roster around that with this new play style that is being deemed. And it's exciting to watch. You look at teams like Dignitas and the success they've had in such short term with Jack, Joreas, and Scrubkilla. The way they're approaching the gameplay, you see a lot of familiarities and a lot of similarities to this new team, and the fact that they're taking second and only losing to that Dignitas team after playing together for the first time should make you pretty excited. Now, we may not see a successful Team Liquid in 2021, 2022, but that does not mean this Team Liquid squad can't be successful in 2022 and 2023. So with that said, there's a lot of things I think to look forward to for Team Liquid. Unfortunately, it's going to take some time. Do I expect success in the winter split? No. And I don't think Team Liquid, players, coach, staff, do either. But the fact that they are thinking about the future and have the ability now to focus and put effort into long-term, thinking about what the future holds, how they're going to get there, and then be able to scrim and use real-life experience in the spring split, not have to look for new players during the offseason, and then come in strong as soon as 2022, 2023 hits, is extremely exciting. So my hat is off to Team Liquid. Obviously, it has been a grueling year and a half of just abysmal performances, and that's being put candidly. But there is hope in the future, and the fact that Team Liquid is willing to stick it out and give these players and teams a chance, I think is really, really respectable. So with that said, this has been the history of Team Liquid in the RLCS. Fingers crossed for success in the future, but we will all have to wait and see. If you guys enjoy this type of content, by all means, if you could, consider giving it a thumbs up and hitting subscribe and turning on notifications, and hope to see you in the next one. Peace.